In 2013 I bought my first GoPro for a snowboarding trip and ended up making a 2.5 minute seamless edit out of all the footage we had got. Despite it taking over 2 weeks to edit and look through footage, I'd always wanted to make another one. So in 2017 we decided to film some new transitions.
One of the ideas we had was going from inside an airplane down onto the piece towards me doing up my bindings and then transition that into a snowboarding shot. We also wanted to emulate a video game and then show someone playing it. We were lucky because our room at the time was facing the slope, so we decided to create a movement where the camera goes out over the balcony and back towards Claudio snowboarding.
Our final kit consisted of the GoPro Hero 6 with Polar Pro filters and the Fusion. For the previous test we had used the Freedom 360 rig, but the Fusion was just a lot lighter and easier to move around, and the stabilization was the best of any 360 camera I had tried. There isn't a really easy way to show how all of the editing was done, as it involved a lot of long nights and making frames from scratch essentially, but I guess showing you the original footage and how it came together might explain a few things. The opening scene consisted of 3 shots. One was inside the airplane with the camera moving towards the window. The second was a drone shot flying towards Susie's back from midair, and the last one was just a simple handheld shot with me walking around Susie as she did her bindings up. Editing the first part was relatively easy compared to the rest, as it just involved a lot of tracking and rotoscoping, and then putting the drone footage behind the windows. The second part was really difficult and it took about 3 nights to fully do. There was a slight jump in Susie's body position on a drone shot and a handheld shot. To fix this I used the first frame of the handheld shot and the last frame of the drone shot. Then I used Twixtor to frame blend between the two. This created another second of footage which I could put between the two on the final comp. After this was tracked back in, all that was left was minor corrections, so I fixed the amount of snow on the snowboard and also put in the correct shadow as well. Going from the chairlift to Susie was another difficult transition. The first shot is pretty self-explanatory and you can see it in the top left. It's shot on the GoPro Hero 6 and it involved me just following Susie as she snowboarded under me. Susie then held the GoPro Fusion above her head, and as the chairlift went over her, she brought it around her back. Using the GoPro reframe plugin and optics compensation in After Effects, I then repositioned the shot to make it look as if the camera was trailing from behind. Going through the goggles is quite a simple transition to do, and the key is to just repeat the movement twice on a mountain. So in the first shot we have the GoPro Hero 6 mounted on the helmet. Susie then had to do exactly the same move again, but this time holding the Fusion in front of her goggles. Once in the edit, the first thing I did was warp the Fusion footage to more closely match the shot from the Hero 6 on the helmet. To smoothen the transition a bit, I also added a gradient on top of the GoPro Fusion footage to more closely match the goggle shot. I then just had to fix a few minor things like the clouds in the background and the size differences in the grind box. These were just PNG fixes from Photoshop which I tracked in manually. And the last part was just adding the helmet back over the Fusion footage. Again, the important part here is not so much the editing, but making sure the 2 shots you film during the day match as closely as possible in terms of camera movement and timing.
The forecast was showing a few bad days during our trip, so to prepare for any bad weather and to make sure we could still film something in a worst case scenario, we came up with the idea of going into the upside down.
In an attempt to make this easier for post, we put down 2 backpacks to use as tracking points, but After Effects and other trackers just didn't pick up on any of them. So in the end I had to track these manually and extend 2 goalposts out of them, and from these goalposts I could then do a 4-point corner track to create a portal. The going through the floor transition is probably the easiest in the whole film. It simply relies on moving the camera from the floor to the ceiling. There's still a little bit of masking and repositioning left to do in After Effects, but as long as you get the speed of the cameras right when you're shooting, then it should be quite easy to do. To finish the transition, you can then add a few concrete or wooden textures between the floors to give it some separation as well.
Our hotel had a really creepy hallway, so we decided to give a little nod to The Shining. To create the creepy twin, I tracked the shot, then rotoscoped myself out manually. I then flipped the duplicate and used the tracking data to put myself back into the corridor. I also had to mask out my arms separately because as the camera moves forward, the angle of the arms changes as well.
So play. As it was just us 2 on a strip, this scene was actually a bit difficult to film. The idea behind this shot was for me to film up to the balcony door and then hand over the GoPro to Susie while I ran downstairs to put on my kit.
Okay.
I was supposed to stand there with the GoPro for about 5 minutes, but Claudio decided to go for lunch, so I stood there for about an hour.
Without giving away the final method completely, the balcony fencing did play a really important role in the editing.
You wanna try again?
Obviously the editing is a really important factor in making this film, but the most important and most overlooked is the planning. And for every scene we had to consider the position of the sun, the angle and length of the shadows, and how we move the camera in terms of height and speed as well. So if you do want to try out your own transitions, then the most important thing I'd recommend is trying to plan out as much as you can before shooting.
And we wanted to give a big thanks to Atre as well for letting us use Galaxy Express. He's got some really great music, so make sure to check it out.